You think your time belongs to you. It doesn't. You wake up at a specific hour. Not because your body decides, but because something expects you to. There's a time to start, a time to move, a time to stop. And most of it was decided before you even woke up. You don't question it because it feels normal. But that's exactly how it works. Look at how your day actually happens. You wake up, you check the time. You already know if you are early or late. There is no moment where the day is undefined. It is already structured. Morning routine. Same order. Same actions. You don't decide each step. You repeat it. You get up. You prepare. You leave. Outside, everything is already moving. People walking in the same direction. Cars filling the same roads. Public transport running on fixed times. You don't organize this. You enter it. And once you enter it, you adjust to it. You move faster when you are late. You relax when you are early. But you never question the structure itself. You just try to fit into it. You don't move randomly. You move according to time. You check how long something will take. You calculate when you need to leave. You adjust your speed to match a schedule. Even small decisions follow the same rule. When to eat, when to rest, when to stop. Not based on how you feel, but based on what comes next. Over time, this becomes automatic. You don't experience time freely. You manage it. You divide it. You optimize it. You try to fit everything inside it. And when something doesn't fit, you remove it. You arrive where you are supposed to be. And the structure continues. There is a start time. There are tasks waiting. There are expectations already set. You move from one block to another. One task, then the next. 1 hour, then another. Everything has a place. There is always something scheduled, something planned, something expected. You don't stop and decide what matters. It is already decided. And over time, this stops feeling imposed. It starts feeling natural. Even your breaks follow the same pattern. You eat at certain hours. You pause when there is time available. Not when your body asks for it, but when the structure allows it. And after repeating this enough times, you stop noticing it. Because repetition removes resistance. And when there is no resistance, there are no questions. At the end of the day, you leave. But the pattern does not end. You return home. You rest. You prepare for the next day. You check the time again. You already know when tomorrow begins. And without thinking about it, you accept it. This is where the structure becomes clear. What looks like a routine is not just a routine. It is a system that organizes time before you even experience it. You don't wake up into an empty day. You wake up into something that already exists, a timeline that is already in motion. Your work has a fixed start. Your responsibilities have fixed durations. Your obligations have fixed deadlines. None of these are created in the moment. They are predefined. You don't control when things begin. You respond to when they begin. Time in this system is not open. It is divided into hours, into segments, into blocks of activity. Each block has a function. Each function has an expectation. And you move through them, one after another. There is another layer to this. Because time is not only structured, it is measured. Everything you do has a duration. Tasks have deadlines. Work has hours. Performance has targets. Your time is not just used. It is evaluated. You are expected to complete things within a certain period. If you take too long, you fall behind. If you move faster, you are considered efficient. So your relationship with time changes. It is no longer something you experience. It becomes something you manage under pressure. And once time becomes measurable, it becomes controllable. You are allowed to move inside the system. You can choose how fast you work, how much effort you give, how you complete a task, but you don't choose the structure itself. You don't decide the timeline. You don't control the flow. And this creates a very specific condition. You feel active, you feel productive, you feel in control. But most of your time is already assigned. Even outside of work, the structure continues. Stores open and close at specific hours. Services operate within fixed times. Social life follows the same patterns. There is always a schedule behind it. Something that defines when access is possible. You don't notice this because it is consistent, because it does not stop, because it does not break. It stays stable. And stability creates trust. But stability also hides control. Because when something always works, you stop asking how it works. This is where it becomes personal. Because once you see the structure, you start to notice something else. You are not just using time. You are following it. Your day is not something you design. It is something you move through, step by step, hour by hour. You wake up when you have to. You work when you are expected to. You rest when there is space. Not when you decide, but when the structure allows it. And over time, this changes how you think. You stop asking what you want to do. You start asking what you have time for. That shift is small, but it changes everything. Because now, your decisions are shaped by availability, not by intention. You delay things, not because they don't matter, but because there is no time. You postpone things, not because you don't want them, but because they don't fit. And slowly, your life organizes itself around that structure. You plan within it. You think within it. You act within it. At some point, you stop seeing it as something external. You stop noticing the system, and you start calling it your life. That is the moment it becomes invisible. Not when it controls you, but when it feels like you. You don't feel restricted. You feel busy. You don't feel limited. You feel occupied. And that is what makes it effective, because nothing feels forced. Nothing feels imposed. You can move. You can act. You can choose. But always within the same structure. At this point, something else happens. You start to protect the structure. You organize your life around it. You defend your schedule. You protect your routine. You avoid anything that disrupts it. Not because it is perfect, but because it is familiar. And when something feels familiar, it feels correct, even if you never chose it. Your time feels personal. It feels like something you own, something you manage, something you control. But look closer. Most of it is already defined. Before you wake up, before you act, before you decide. You don't start the day from zero. You enter something that is already running. And once you enter it, you continue it. You follow the schedule. You follow the expectations. You follow the structure. Not because you are forced to, but because everything around you depends on it. And over time, that structure stops feeling external. It becomes normal. It becomes routine. It becomes invisible. And when something becomes invisible, you stop questioning it. You don't ask where your time goes. You assume you used it. But the system does not need to take your time away. It only needs to organize it before you ever touch it. And the longer you stay inside it, the harder it becomes to see it. Because everything continues to work. everything continues to move. Nothing stops. And as long as nothing stops, you never feel the need to question it. You are not deciding how to spend your time. You are deciding how to move inside it. Because your time was never completely yours.